Hi,
Hey
amiga.
guys,
How's everyone doing?
doing good.
Good.
Cold.
I know I'm starting to feel it.
Yeah, don't want to get up in the mornings, want to stay in bed.
I am not a morning person as it is, and with this weather, it's just so
Yeah, that's
Same. Hace frío.
so funny. The kids are already like, give me my hoodie, give me my scarf, and it's barely the beginning of it.
I know.
Right? Like the rain barely just like what? It rained only once. So ya cuando
Yeah,
empieza a llover más seguido es cuando se viene el frío.
that's California people for you guys.
Yeah.
We die with a
So,
little
so
bit of cold.
icky. That's how we are. That's how delicate we are.
We're
All right,
spoiled because technically this cold weather is nothing compared to other places.
I know.
definitely.
All right, how's everybody doing on the book?
Oh, it's amazing. I was just saying how I highlighted everything. Um, and it's just such a good book. Like I can't stop highlighting and underlining.
Yeah, it's been really, really good, but I gotta be honest, like my mind was so hard to get back into it because I think all the elections going on
Mm,
and there was just so much going on that I couldn't get into it. And I was like, okay, I need to get back into it. Like this helps for daily life routines and stuff. So I was like, I need it.
yeah, I'm a news junkie and I just couldn't stop watching. I mean, I still can't stop watching. I watch it all day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's been really helpful. I think that this one has spoken to me the most, I think. Um just the topics and just how much in depth she goes into.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
agree. This one has been so good. Like I'm reading stuff and I'm constantly telling Albert, like, oh my God, you need to read it. Like this is gonna be so good for you, for work, for your employees. And I've already mentioned some
Yeah.
stuff to my boss.
I wanted to give it to every, like, management position at my
Yeah, it's so true.
like,
A lot
you
of our leaders have read it. So
Oh, that's good.
yeah. Alright, so we're gonna be discussing page 119 to 204. Uh, so we start at empathy and connecting, which was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, a lot of it, in my profession itself, empathy is like number one, right? I'm a therapist, and without empathy, we can't work. Like that's the number one key of being a therapist is being able to empathize and connect with our clients, our patients.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
that one.
before it was a good start for this chapter, I must say, because I liked her concussion story. Do you guys remember that?
Oh yeah, I posted about that because I'm one of those people where well, I'm better now, but that was really hard for me, like sick days, what are those, and
Mm-hmm.
I have health issues. I have a disability and it was just like I would go to work. I've gone to work like dying, and I've had my coworkers say, "You need to go home." Like, what are you doing?
So, Nady, refresh us on what's the concussion.
So she slammed her head at the glass wall, right? And I just remember highlighting, making a note of her concussion story because that was at the very beginning. But she just talks about being vulnerable and letting go, right? Because she was so in control of everything, and she finally had to learn to just let go and not be in control. Her husband was like, "No, like there's no way that you're gonna go to this interview. There's no way that you're gonna do this." And she struggled a lot, and that's something that I feel like it stood out to me because I'm always wanting to be in control of everything. And that's part of being vulnerable, right? You just got to let things
Yeah.
flow.
She actually like did push herself like to an extreme limit of, trying to do it and continuing to just like be normal and like ignore it. But I mean, it was taking over regardless.
And I think,
And
what she talks about, which I see with myself, I see with my clients, I see with patients, I work in a medical setting. It's like you're sick, and as she would try to jump back in to do things before her body was actually ready, she was just prolonging it,
yeah,
right? Because healing really needs you to just take that break. And it's funny because I think when you do take that break and let go, um, you work at such a such a great capacity after you heal, but trying to work sick is like, but it's the ultimate struggle of control, you know?
On page 123, I highlighted this stood out to me because I don't know if it's a culture thing, and I really feel like it is.
Yeah,
So she explains how unwanted identity is one of the primary elicitors of shame, and this how this whole thing of her having a concussion it led to shame, which is going to be our next topic. But she says how they explain the unwanted identities are characteristics that undermine our vision of our ideal selves. Sick, unreliable, and undependable are huge unwanted identities. For me, as a fifth generation German American Texan, I grew up believing that illness is a weakness. Not in other people, in other people's, it's human and okay. We should support and help. But in our family, being sick is lazy. And if you're tough enough, you can walk off anything. And I really felt like that was my childhood, where my
and
mom would be like,
I'm telling you, I highlighted that whole section too.
yeah, it's my highlight as well.
Yeah, and I think and that's what I posted on Instagram, how I really think it's culture, because I remember my mom working sick. I remember my dad working sick. My dad would work 2, 3 jobs. My mom would too. And it's like they were always so sick. And even when I started working and I would get sick, my mom would be like, drink an ibuprofen and go to work.
Yep.
Like we weren't when I started working with, I mean, sorry to say, but like white people or certain organizations, and they're like, "Oh, you have sick time," and I just thought you got to take time off when you were sick. I didn't know you get paid while you're sick.
Or you're like powering through at work and they're like, no, 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 you don't look good. Go home, please. You need to go home. We can't have you here. And I'm just like, what? Like I need to be here. And they're more like kicking you out. I'm like, no, please go home.
and then it becomes a guilt thing, right? It goes from like shame to guilt. No, no, no. We were ruined with that.
But it really is that like, well, how does this make me look? Like this makes me look lazy. I didn't get my work done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like that makes me
Or
look
you're gonna fall behind.
mhm. You're gonna fall behind. People are counting on you. Like it's just, and I agree. I think it's we're all Latinas, we're Mexican, and we come from cultures where querías norte, you wanted to go to the U.S. It's to work, and so I
Yeah.
think
Bust your ass.
yeah, I used to I would watch my parents. I just thought that's what you had to do. I didn't know they paid you while you were sick. Like I need a paycheck. I go, well, you're still getting paid. You have sick time. The
Yeah.
hell does that
Mhm.
mean?
And I think we weren't aware of it because the majority of the jobs that our parents had, they didn't offer that.
They
Right.
don't offer that
You know,
to the
restaurants, industries.
I
I mean,
didn't.
maybe nowadays, but I know when my parents, they obviously back in the days when I was young, no les daban vacaciones. They didn't have PTO. They didn't have any of that stuff. It was like you go to work sick because if not, you don't get paid. Period.
and that's the thing, even when they go on vacation, it's not paid. Like you're not getting paid, so you have to really plan.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think like Nady says after that comes in shame, right?
Yeah.
So she, on page 126, she has it in bold lettering. Shame is an intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love, belonging, and connection. It's like boom, boom, and boom. All those three are like huge. And
Yeah.
so true. Like you feel all of those things when shame hits. And you don't even like stop to think like, oh my God, I'm really feeling that I don't belong here, that I don't connect with anybody, that I'm not worthy of love. Like, how crazy is that?
Yeah. And it was funny because I know we've talked about this before, how I was telling you guys, like, oh, when your children do something bad, you say what you did was bad. Never say you are bad.
Right.
Because
I have like lived by that now, Jess, since you told us that. And I'm always telling Albert. So I'm every day, like I drop off the kids at the sitter and I'm not like, be a good boy. I'm more like, be kind, be respectful, be helpful, and, have fun. Have a good day.
that's perfect.
Yeah.
Because that's the shame, right? If I do something bad, and she talks about the difference between shame and guilt, right?
Uh-huh.
Guilt, you did something, you learn from it and you move on. But shame is when you are that bad thing.
Yeah. Like you beat yourself up for it, right?
Hmm. Yeah. And that's kind of what starts creating, well, if you're a bad person, you won't be loved. If you're a bad person, you're not worthy.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And they also bring up the shame as in comparison to humiliation and embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she compares shame, guilt, humiliation, and embarrassment. And I really like it because I mean, I always talk about the difference between shame and guilt, but it was good to see how it's different from humiliation or embarrassment.
Yeah. Here's a real big one that I was like, oh my God, like parents really need to listen to this. But on page 127, all the way at the bottom, it says research shows that the pain and feelings of rejection that shame inflicts are as real as physical pain. Emotions can hurt. Like it's as real as pain. Like as you get hurt physically, it's as bad as emotionally.
Yeah, so this one's really cool. Like, they do fMRI scans on people. So they put electrodes on their brains. There's one experiment, it's really cool. Somebody walks into a room, there's 3 people and they're all sitting there, and 2 of the people go, "Hey, let's play catch." And they get up to play catch, but they don't invite the 3rd person, and it takes, like, a little while, but the part of the brain that starts lighting up is the exact same part of the brain that lights up for pain. And
Wow.
then, like, he starts trying to talk to them or stuff, and they don't respond, and they don't pay attention, and it's the same receptors as pain. So when you reject someone enough or you say negativity enough, you're targeting the exact same brain components. That's why it's actually true that you can die of a broken heart.
Mm.
Or they
That's
say that's why people who have FOMO are negative people.
Mm-hmm.
but it's because think about it, like when your tooth hurts or your head hurts, can you be nice to people?
Right. You don't want to
You're
hear
just
it.
like a little cranky and you're just like, "Oh, I don't wanna talk to anyone." So imagine like if you have that moment, it's the same pain.
Yeah.
Right.
It
Yeah.
reminds me of like that, what is that kid movie that has all the emotions?
Oh my god, we always say to see that one.
I
It's
love it. And every time we watch it, I'm always like, why is that one feeling like that? Why is that one doing that? Just to see what the kids say if they get it, you know?
mhm,
And they do. It's a really cute movie. I love it.
yeah.
It's
I
a lot
forgot
of
what it's called.
information. Like JD asks a lot of questions, and sometimes I don't even know how to answer questions.
Yeah.
She doesn't get, or she's like, why is the, I don't know who, I think they're just called by their emotions, sad, the sad girl is like ruining the happy moments. So,
Mm-hmm.
so anyways, not that we're going to get into the movie, but it is a good movie and it has a lot of meanings.
Yeah.
So it says that some things to look out for, that we see with shame is perfectionism, favoritism, gossiping, back-channeling, comparison, self-worth tied to productivity, harassment, discrimination, power over, bullying, blaming, teasing, cover-ups.
So all of these were things to look out for
Mhm,
of if you probably see them in organizations.
mhm,
And it's so funny that when I was reading this, there were some things going on at my job. And I was like, interesting. So I started reading them very like slowly and thinking, is there any of this that I feel is going on at work? And out of all of these, I highlighted one, two, three, four, five of them that were going on at the time. That is pretty sad that in my job, those things were going on.
Yeah, I a lot of that stood out on mine too.
Yeah.
Not mine.
There was no gossiping. There's always gossiping.
But the higher ups at your job read this book.
Yeah. See? It's
And
just
you work with all your higher ups.
yeah, it's the environment that in the department that I'm in. But if I compare it to other places, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
But that's what I'm saying. Like the environment they have established doesn't have that. So that's awesome, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, it's sad for some of our jobs that are still going through it.
Oh, and then so the good thing is shame resilience. So one of my favorite things on earth and the reason I became a therapist is resilience. So resilience is this belief that, you know, we can build ourselves back up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what she has a whole section. Shame resilience is the ability to practice authenticity when we experience shame, to move through experience without sacrificing our values, and to come out the other side of shame experience with more courage, compassion, and connection than we had going into it. Ultimately, shame resilience is about moving from shame to empathy, the real antidote of shame. But the part that really like stood out to me, and I was like, oh, this is why I love my profession. She says, but for now, it's important to understand that if we share our story with someone who responds with empathy and understanding, shame can't survive. So I was like, that's what I do for a living. So I feel like by reading this, and really like working on our empathy and growing in our compassion and understanding, um, we have the ability to help anyone that we meet
Yeah,
not carry that shame,
right.
you know? If we're just like empathetic and understanding of people's stories, we can help them establish shame resilience.
Like the story she shared in the book about the flight, how they had to cancel her flight and she was going to be late to her daughter's game. And her friend, what is her name? Suzanne,
Mm-hmm.
was the ideal example of what it is to be empathetic.
What
She
she
was
needed. Yeah.
with her. And I'm just like, I thought about you guys because I'm like, damn, like my friends show their empathy towards me all the time when shit goes down, right? So I was like, okay, we all have a Suzanne in us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny because I was telling my mom because she hasn't caught up with the reading, and I was like, "Mom, you need to read Empathy," because as a mother, it's crazy how sometimes it's sad to be empathetic. Because so empathy is being in that moment and feeling the emotions with the other person,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I feel that I can do that so well with everyone, but not my child. And it's because in that moment when he's hurting, I want to rescue,
Right.
which is never the thing to do, right? So, like, basically, it's like, okay, if your child's in pain and suffering, be with him in pain and suffering. And so my mom does that too. She's like, look, we'll do this, and you can do this, and you can do that. And I'm like, just shut the fuck up. Like, this is not the moment. Just be here for me, you know?
Yeah,
And
just hear me out.
but you just want to rescue, like, let me give you every answer. Let's find a solution. Let me fix it for
Yeah,
you.
that's what it is. Find a solution.
Hmm. And with other people, I don't do that. I don't find solutions for them. I'm just there with them and the experience. And I'm like, I'll be here. Like, keep messing up or keep going through whatever you're going through. I'll be here, you know?
I can't fix your problems.
Hmm. Yeah. But with my child, I'm like, let me come up with a plan. I can fix this. And
Yeah.
it's our own shame. Like, you know, like as a parent, like it makes you really question, like, what am I doing wrong? Like, how did I fuck up? Like, what am I not giving them? Or, you know,
Mhm.
I say
Or
like,
guilt. We also have guilt. I know when she was explaining her story about missing her daughter's game, like I'm that mom that if I miss any performance, anything that has to do with my daughter, if I do not attend and I'm not there, I feel guilty. Like I feel like I'm a bad mom.
Yeah.
But dad will miss dance practice or whatever and he's fine. And I'm like,
I
but
think
it's
like
like it
that.
goes back to the mom, right? The role
Yeah.
mom in us where it's part of us being
yeah.
empathetic to any situation revolving our kid. Like we want to be there for them and solve
Mhm.
it and be there. And
See it all. Yeah.
And the
Experience
thing
it all.
is, when your kids are little, um, when your kids are little, you can rescue,
Mhm.
right? But when your child is 12 and they're going through something and you're trying to help them through it, they're like, "Oh my God, leave me alone." And it's because at that age they need empathy,
Yeah.
rescuing, and rescuing is pretty much like a very close friend of sympathy.
Yeah. She has a good way to explain it here on page 142, like in the middle. But empathy isn't about fixing, it's the brave choice to be with someone in their darkness, not to race, to turn on the light so we feel
Mhm. Yeah.
better.
yeah, there's
That
another.
and that's what I'm
Um,
saying. That's what we do for our kids.
Yeah.
so I highlighted the what is it? Page 142. Empathy is a choice and it's a vulnerable choice because if I were to choose to connect with you through empathy, I would have to connect with something in myself that knows the feeling.
Right.
So
You want
that's
to
where I was
share the
like,
same thing.
exactly. Where it's like even saying I know or just validating their feelings, it's huge. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what makes us a good listener. I feel like all of us have that characteristics where we have friends that come to us to talk to us and tell us what's going on and that we give those good vibes. But I think it's because we're all very empathetic. Like we have empathy in our characteristics, which is good.
Right. Yeah. We need that. And then
Yeah.
after that, she starts giving skills. Empathy skill number one, to see the world as others see it or perspective taking. And empathy skill number two, to be non-judgmental. Empathy skill number three, to understand another person's feelings. And that one's connected with number four as well, to communicate your understanding of the person's feelings. These are such good tools to use.
Yeah, and so I think I have a video on my Instagram page that kind of like breaks it down, but I agree with her. Like understanding and being able to communicate that you understand. That's
Mhm.
so important. Because you're seen, and it's funny because we do this a lot with I do this a lot with kids and with their parents or with couples or, and it's teaching them how to show that I understand what you're going through, teaching them not to give answers because answers are not usually what's needed in that moment.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if you guys ever noticed, but like I'm a therapist, right? But um I wait for you guys to ask me like, "Oh, what should I do? What's your advice?" Like, I never say like, "Oh, I think this is what you should do next," or "This is what you should tell them," or "This is what you should," you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of times I just wait. Like, I've had moments where like Navy's like, "Jessica, you're the therapist. Tell us what to do." And I won't do that because I'm like, "Well, that's not," and even as a therapist, it's not. I think that's a misconception that people think like, "Oh, as a therapist, you're gonna tell me everything to do." And sure, like we educate on why something's right and why something's wrong, but we don't give you the answer.
Like before somebody asks or tells you to say something because you're the therapist and you should know it, are you already thinking it and just waiting for somebody to ask? Or you're just like, that's their problem and
I'm
I'm
really
not going to help unless they ask?
I'm really big on just being in the moment. Like I'm not one like, and it's funny because I've had people ask me, "Are you analyzing me?" Like, "Are you reading me? Are you" I'm like, "No, like,
I
you're"
know I'm hungry. I'm trying to think about what I'm gonna eat.
yeah, I don't, like, I mean, once I'm asked, then yeah, like, I'll give some suggestions and, you guys have asked me like, "Oh, well, why do you think my child is doing this or that?" And then I'll give you guys some really, like, elaborate answer.
Yeah.
But I I don't, like, I don't I mean,
So you're not always wearing your therapist hat.
no, no, no. I mean, once you ask, I will help. I will always help, but to say that I will jump in and do no. And you
Mm-hmm.
guys see it all the time, right? Like, you guys will say, like and people that meet me and don't know I'm a therapist, they don't realize I'm a therapist because I'm not big to tell you what to do or not do with your life, you know? So,
Yeah.
I'm just like, I let everyone do their thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Um,
Yeah. Empathy is a very big, long
Yeah,
explanation.
there was a lot of information on there.
yeah. It's really good. Everything she goes over, like I said, I teach this for a living. Um, let's see, 152, empathy in practice. When we're struggling and in need of connection and empathy, we need to share with someone who embraces us for our strengths and struggles, someone who has earned the right to hear our story. Finding that right someone takes practice, and so does being the right person. When it comes
Yeah.
to empathy, it's a matter of the right person at the right time on the right issue. I
Mm-hmm.
like that one because I feel like I don't tell everyone the same issues.
Yeah, you have your people for certain things.
Yeah, like, I think I share certain parts of me with certain people, and I've been told, like, "Oh, well, isn't, like you say you're honest, but then you don't share all your story with people or this or that." And to me, it's like, I don't think everyone earns that from you.
Or not earned, but like it's if what you're telling that person is what's gonna I don't know what they're able to help you in, what they're gonna be able to
Yeah,
understand you in.
yeah. So I have to know that they understand.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's, like, really hard for me to, like, sit there and tell them, like, all my
Right.
stuff, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, I
Are you
agree. And
so based
that's
on like
really interesting that you
vibes?
know.
Based on the vibes, guys, okay? If they don't give you good vibes, they don't pick up on your honesty.
Don't share nothing. Hey,
No,
but
but
that's really interesting, right? That you need to find the right person for that, but you also need to be the person for somebody,
Yeah.
to be understanding of that.
Mhm. Okay. All right. And you know what? She goes through a lot of scenarios. So I would say everyone read through them. We have a lot to cover. So let's move on from empathy to what was the next one, guys? Um,
Practicing empathy
I just read that girl.
on 157.
Yeah.
that one's a good one. Self-compassion.
Oh yeah. That was a good one.
Yeah.
Yep, on 158. Talk to yourself the way you talk to someone you love.
Oh, yeah. That was my big highlight. I said, take
Dude,
your own advice.
I have literally said, would you say that to your child?
Yes, you have.
Like, would you? And if you
Mhm.
wouldn't, don't say it to yourself. I know I've told my son, like, when he's saying mean things about himself, I'm like, you need to stop because you're talking about the person I love.
That's a good one.
I'm like, if you heard someone talking about your mother that way, would you be okay? And he's like, no. And I was like, then don't talk about my son that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
True.
On 160, there's a sentence that says, self kindness is self empathy. And even when I talk to myself like someone I love and it feels weird, it works.
It does. It's crazy.
So as weird as it is, we got to start talking to ourselves like we talk to others that we love.
And if you do it with repetition, I come off as conceited quite often. And it's just that repetition. Like you have to like tell yourself over and over. And it's so funny because there's some things that I'm like, I remember growing up and certain things that people would always tell me. And to this day, I'm like, I obviously believe it. Everyone's told me, like,
And now she's always repeating it. You guys, I'm just so good. I'm so good at what I do.
yeah.
Or I think something similar that I feel like applies to me is affirmations.
Yeah, those are really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So in the next section,
Section 5, curiosity and grounding confidence. Grounded confidence.
yeah.
Who we
So
are
this
and
one I read it.
how we lead.
Huh?
It's the chapter that starts with who we are is how we lead.
Yeah.
I feel like this one was a little bit of the beginning because it goes back into rumbling with vulnerability.
Yeah.
And it talks more about vulnerability, which was the beginning of the book.
Right.
And it was I highlighted a lot. Why? Oh, this one. Okay. The more grounded confidence parents have, the more likely they are to prepare their child for a path of teaching courage, praising effort, and modeling grit versus trying to prepare a perfect path for their child or fixing. Praising only results and intervening. And that's what I just said. Like, this is what I struggle with. Like, I want to rescue my child. Like, I want to fix things, And
What page was that on, Jess?
Page 166 at the top. So I think that's one of my struggles, And I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I have a teenager. I have to transition and stop rescuing and just letting them be more. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of my highlights, it wasn't too much of highlights, I think, because like Nady said, this repeated a lot of from the beginning. And more, it's just more examples on how to put it to practice.
I think this one went more into putting it to practice in the workplace environment.
Yeah. On page 179, practicing vulnerability, I highlighted people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So it's about seeing it,
Yeah, that's a good one. You guys, I was going through it and I have our names on certain sections.
Oh,
share it.
All right. So for page 172, it says me. The knower is in us is our ego. So obviously you guys know I'm the knower. Either races to beat everyone in the room with answers that may or may not address the real issue, or thinks I don't want to talk about this and because I'm not sure how it's going to go. So for me, I'm the knower. Like I want an answer now. I want to give it now and let's just move on. Right. And then Vero, I put the section says curiosity says, no worries. I love a wild ride. I'm up for whatever this goes. And I'm in for however long it takes to get there, to get to the heart of the problem. So that's Vero, right? And then for Navy, I put 173. It says sometimes the best rumbles start with 30 minutes, binding conversation, and an agreement to circle back in a few hours or the next day. So for that one, I put don't wait too long. It says don't wait too long. So I want the answers now. Nady's like, let's wait, let's think it through and think and think. And then sometimes she takes too long. And Vero's like, okay, guys, let's see. Like,
let's just try one of them.
Let's talk about it. And I'm just like,
over it by the time I'm like, yeah, let's go.
but I'm like,
and then Vero has to pull Jessica back into the idea.
Yeah.
Since she's been over because Nady took so long.
Yeah, exactly. You guys see it?
Oh, yes.
I was like, this is us, guys. One thing that I really liked is always know what our role dictates. So as we're learning some of these things, especially in our group, our little group, I'm like, well, we should find the strengths in each one of us and know our role. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's
It's
so
like we got that down.
yeah,
Who
because
can
we
do
have
what?
you.
Yeah.
We have you. Ooh, and then on page 179, she says, as a leader, I no longer check my personal life at the door. And that's something that I was struggling with a lot when we were doing when we were reading Lean In.
Mm-hmm.
She said the exact same line. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And the reason why is because a lot of times we think that if we share our stories with our coworkers, or if your management, if you share it with like someone that you're managing, that they're going to lose respect or authority, right?
Yeah.
And they're saying no because that shows your vulnerability.
So I kind of have gone through that. Like, I have people under me and I won't share too much or open up too much. And sometimes they're
Yeah.
like, do you have social media? And even that, I'm like, no, I want to be very private about it. And it's just like, I don't know,
In another section, she says, no boundaries. Like, you still have to have boundaries. You know what I mean? But even as therapists, like, a lot of times they teach us like, you don't need to talk about the fact that you're a mom. But then sometimes you have a client in front of you, and by you saying just the smallest thing, like, oh, my son, they're like, okay, she gets me.
Okay, she goes through it also, so it's okay.
Yeah. So it's like, so that's what she's saying too in this one. Like, you don't have to share everything, but start being more vulnerable about who you are too.
Yeah.
But yeah, something like social media, that could be a limit,
Mm-hmm.
that could be a boundary moment.
Yeah, I've always been, it's a little thin line right there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard because sometimes like trying to be personal and keep that on the DL, it can have you come off as like stuck up or se cree mucho, or she just doesn't care, she's in her own world. Because I've had that. And I've had bosses where nada que ver, they have boundaries and they still live a little normal life. They have social media. So it just really just depends on you and how you carry it and how you do your boundaries.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the final section that we're going to go into is living into your values. So I really had fun with this one because I was like, "Ooh, let me see what I have."
This was really fun. I was so interested in too. I was like, what? Like how she just says, like, you are gonna, where is it at? I'm gonna like show you something that you never even knew
Mhm.
of before. And I was like, how exciting. I really got excited for that.
Yeah.
So page 186, living into our values means that we do more than profess our values. We practice them. We walk our talk. We are clear about what we believe and hold important. And we take care that our intentions, words, thoughts, and behaviors align with those beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say this, and I've said it to my clients and I've said it to my patients when I help them identify their values, is if you identify your values and then you take actions that don't align, it causes such a chaos inside of you. Like, it's such a disruption.
Yeah, you don't feel yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, my child's like, "It's cognitive dissonance." I'm like, "Yes, it is." Like, because you have two opposing thoughts living in your brain, and you're just like, "I can't." It's like, when you've gone against your values, 'cause you get that feeling.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Dijera mi mamá, es el diablo. He's tempting.
Oh man.
And it was so cool when she was like, "If you have too many values, you have none." I was like, "Oh, shoot." Like,
Yeah.
we only live by one set of values, she says. All right. So what did you guys get?
Ooh.
So
So it was hard to just pick two,
yeah.
but I went ahead and I picked gratitude and family. Those were my two values that I highlighted from this list that really stood out to me.
And for those that want to find this right away, it's on page 188. It's a list of values. It has probably about 50 of them or more.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all great. I swear, as I started, I was like, oh my God, like I want them all. Like, how am I just gonna pick one? Like, she's so right. She said you would want to pick 15. And you just keep going down the list, and it was so hard. So mine was faith and personal fulfillment.
What was funny about me is that I picked mine right away. They're on the first list, right? But then I was like, no, like I should really, this is important. I should really like read all of them, you know? And then it was funny because
Wait, Jess, wait a minute. You didn't know your values before this?
I've always known, but I hadn't done it like this. And it's funny because I have my clients do it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And actually I did a self-empowerment program, and yeah, these were the two that were listed for me that I came up with. And it was funny because it's authenticity and compassion. And she says, if you pick your top two and all the ones you wanted to pick, if you look at all the ones you wanted to pick, they fall under the top two. And it was like, that's so true, because I was like, I saw honesty. I'm all about honesty, and it falls under authenticity, kindness, it falls under compassion. So I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was right.
Mm-hmm. That's so true.
Very true.
Yeah.
So page
That's so good.
189.
And after you pick those two, I mean, it breaks it down even more. Like she says, she will like let you see things that you've never even knew by yourself.
Mhm. Yeah. And so she talks about how that by living by these two values, there are three questions you should ask yourself. Okay, what are the three behaviors that support your value? What are the three slippery behaviors that are outside your value? What's an example of a time when you were fully living into this value? Which I thought was really cool because it's like checking you. And when it says, what are the three behaviors that support your values? What are the three slippery behaviors? It's interesting because we're all gonna slip. Like that's when we feel that thing in our pit of our stomach, like, this doesn't feel right to me.
Mm-hmm.
The
Because
devil.
we're all gonna slip, like you know, and that's kind of how you know. And I think as I get older, I get better, you know, like authenticity, like I've always been about being real, but sometimes like I'm a very friendly person, and I think I would confuse compassion with just doing things for people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that one sometimes now I'm like, I don't want to do any of that, and I'm not going to. And I mean, for the most part, I've always been like that. You guys know me. Like, it's very hard to get me to do things I don't want to do.
Yes, that is true.
Well, yeah, so this was a fun section. Everyone should check it out to kind of break down like these
Yeah,
areas.
and somewhere towards this section, she also says, you know, how there's so much like workbooks and everything that she offers on her website, BreneBrown.com. And I honestly gotta say, you gotta check it out, like just to get more workbooks and more things to work on. I mean, even if you want to use it towards like, you know, leadership at work with your employees, or just a team type of workbooks that she has. So it's really cool.
Definitely. And, you know, living into our values, like it's huge, and learning how to use empathy, especially self-empathy. I think we promote self-empowerment so much, and just self-care and just loving yourself, that using these tools on yourself, I think, are so important.
Yeah, it falls right under self-care.
Yeah. This is like huge on self-care, guys. Everyone do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
it's exciting that it like we're almost towards the end and it got this good right now. And I'm like, oh, I want more.
Yeah, definitely. I love her.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We're
Um,
almost, we're almost done.
so I think that's kind of where we're gonna wrap it up, right, ladies?
Yes.
So stay tuned.
We'll be having one more, right? One more podcast coming up.
Yeah, for the last half, but follow us, comment, like, subscribe if you're looking on YouTube, so you can get the alerts when you get the new one. And yeah, follow us.
We'll be announcing the brunch soon also. Hopefully you all can make it.
Yeah, we're gonna do Zoom. We're still doing Zooms. And also, if you have any friends that want to read with us and we're already almost at the end of this book, just let them join soon so that they can help us pick out our last book and just keep reading new books and just getting more amigas to join us.
Yeah. This was a good book, so I highly recommend, even if they're not reading with us now, that they do start reading it later on, and they could even catch up with this podcast.
Yeah.
Let's stay
All right.
tuned.
Bye, amigas.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.